Hey, everybody, I'd like to do a shout out to our sponsor, Dogs. Yes, Dogs. If you're looking for top security, forget the rest and get the best. Get yourself a dog.
Hi, this is 50/50, Real Estate Podcast for the Common Man, where we talk about selling, buying, and investing in real estate. We aren't baffling you with BS. We're dazzling you with brilliance. We're not telling you how to become a millionaire. We're telling you stories, the truth, and the information no one is talking about. So sit back, listen, laugh, and enjoy 50/50, Real Estate Podcast for the Common Man.
Hey everybody, JD here. Hope you're looking good and feeling fine. Hopefully you had a great week with friends, neighbors, relatives, and acquaintances. We're going to be discussing something that I've been concerned about for about 30 years. A lot of people haven't been talking about this. As a matter of fact, the industry doesn't really want you to know the details of this because there's quite a lot of money into this. I mean, people are making millions and millions and millions of dollars, and I don't think they really want you to know the truth behind here. Now, I have done some research, not really in massive detail, because I'm not a research company, but I've done enough that kind of verifies my thoughts about this. Now, in no way am I a experienced nor scientist, but when you read and things kind of come out in the articles, it kind of supports your theory. So let me start with how this all kind of came to be. About 30 years, I would say, back in the 90s. I've been selling homes for about 35 years, but about in the 90s, the real estate market really started slowing down. Interest rates were real high. I mean, geez, 9, 10, 10.5, 11%. And builders were trying to cut costs. And what was happening is that the housing market just had slowed down. So builders were saying, we need to find a way to build cheaper homes. And what I've noticed is since I've been selling homes, people look at cosmetics. They really don't look at the quality of the home. If you go back, I mean, naturally, today's homes, yes, they have more efficient furnaces and more efficient windows and better installation. But overall, they're kind of built a lot cheaper with cheaper materials than what they were 50 years ago. And about the 90s, they started really cutting costs, making things real cheap. And I kind of remember when I first saw these floor trusses. And before they used solid wood, 8x10s, floor trusses. Then they came up with this 2x2 piece of wood on the top, 2x2 piece of wood on the bottom, and plywood in the middle. And they said, this was a lot stronger than a regular floor, and it was anti-squeak. It was called an engineer floor joist. And I and everybody back there looked at it and went, boy, this just looks so cheap. Well, it was just as strong, and they've been using them ever since, as a regular solid piece of wood. But a couple of people said, what about the fire burn-through rating? They said, I don't think the burn-through rating is going to last as much as a solid piece of wood. So that was one of the cheap kind of product they came out with. And if you look at new homes, if you look at your homes and the floor joists, if it's a relatively new home, I see within maybe 30 years, you're probably going to see a floor joist that's not a solid floor joist. It's like I said, it's like a 2x2, a 2x2, and then a piece of plywood in the middle. It's called an engineer flooring. So they started coming up with that. And the people back then looked at it and went, what? This is just cheap junk. But we had people come into our office and explain, oh, this is like state of the art floor joists. It's a lot stronger than a normal solid floor joist, blah, 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 blah. And we all kind of looked at us and rolled our eyes and said, yeah, it might be, but the only reason why you're building them is because it's way cheaper than a solid piece of wood and it's a lot lighter. So you can work with them way more faster, quicker. You only take about two people to lift it, and it's light of a feather compared to a solid piece of wood. So that was the first thing that kind of came to be when it came to kind of cutting back on quality and trying to find a cheaper way to build homes. The next thing that I saw is that when they had solid wood trim, the trim in a home that used to go around the doors and the floors and so on was solid wood. And then they came up with a trim that looked like solid wood, but it was all kind of glued sawdust. And they use that today. It's just kind of particle board trim that isn't solid wood, and they started replacing solid wood with this kind of cheap sawdust looking trim. Got rid of that, and then they started getting rid of solid wood doors, and they started putting these fake kind of plastic hollow core doors, and that was just kind of compressed mold that looked like a 6-panel door, but it was just a plastic sheet over a bunch of cardboard in the middle of it, and with some cardboard and some wood around the frame. And it was a lot lighter, a lot easier to work with, and way, way, way cheaper than a solid door. I mean, you go and get a solid door now, they might be $250, where a plastic door that looks kind of like it might be $80. So a lot of builders started going with I would say plastic doors. And then they started getting off with taking metal water faucets that were chrome and brass, and they started making plastic water faucets that looked like metal, and they just put a chrome finish on it. So over the past 30 years, things have gotten cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Matter of fact, one of my friends say the refrigerators and appliances now, you're lucky to get 4 to 5 years, but in the olden days, they last 20 or 30 years because you're just making them cheaper. And matter of fact, one of the people that I know who are familiar with refrigerators said that what they have done is taken out the condenser motor and just put in a smaller motor to make it more efficient. So that smaller motor now has to do the job of a bigger motor. So they pretty much overheat and burn out within 4 to 6 years. I mean, some of them, you see the complaints, they last 6 months and they're having problems with it. So what we're getting into is just cheaper stuff, so big companies can make more and more and more profit. But back in the 90s, one of the things that I was concerned about, because what I mentioned, a lot of it is cosmetic and really doesn't affect your health. They're cheaper products, but they don't really affect your health. The one that I'm concerned about, in 30 years later, the data's coming out that I might have not been as off as what people thought I was. Back in the 1990s, I started looking at new homes. Matter of fact, I remember as if it was yesterday, I walked into a home, and there was a plumber, or you could call him a plumber. I wouldn't consider he was like a skilled, master plumber, but he called himself a plumber. And he was putting in a home. Boy, it looked like a hose. It looked like a plastic hose running through a house. And I've never seen this before. And I asked him, "Oh, is this something that, to make sure the pipes are going to go through correctly, that everything's lined up?" And so he goes, "No, no, no. This is like the new thing they're putting in the homes." And I said, "Well, this just looks like one big plastic hose." And he said, "No." He said it's PEX pipe. It's well, back then it was called polybutylene, but they kind of got rid of that because there was a lot of problems, and the fittings didn't fit on, and they were cracking, and they didn't last very long, and the fittings were coming out, and floods and so on. So they changed it to polyethanol pipe, and that's what PEX pipe. It's polyethanol pipe. And we're talking about the new kind of polyethanol pipe, but it still kind of came out about 30 years ago. And I said, "Well, this just really looks like they're really cutting corners. It was like somebody running a hose through the house." And he said to me, "Oh, JD, this is like the best thing since sliced bread. This is saving plumbers so much time, and it's so easy to install, and you don't have to to solder, and you don't have to really cut and make all the joints and so on. So this is just super easy." And I started looking at it, and I started saying, "Yeah, but it just looks really, really, it's basically, like I said, it's like running a plastic hose through your house." So I started really having my thoughts, and I went around to a lot of the building sites, and they all started kind of using this PEX pipe. And every time I asked a plumber, I got the same thing. "This is the best things. Oh, wow, it saves us so much time. It's so easy to install. There's no soldering. You just run the pipe in, and for where you want the joint, you just cut it with the shears. You put an elbow in it, you clamp it, and you go on." And I went, "Wow, this is really interesting." So I started looking at that, and one day, when the house was completely done and they were having a walkthrough, I kind of turned on the water and I tasted it, and it tastes terrible. It was like drinking out of a hose. It had kind of like an oil taste or a gasoline taste. And I went, "Wow, this tastes," how like when you have a hose and it's sitting out in the hot sun, and you turn it on to take a drink of it in the summer, you get that plastic hose taste. That's what it tastes. And I went, "Wow, this tastes terrible." Well, the builder said to my client, "Well, just run the water in, and that'll dissipate in a few months, and you'll never taste it." So, I just went, "Wow, wait a minute. This is a petroleum product that they made." And I was thinking, wow, it's a petroleum product and water's in there. Is anything leaching into the water? And I was concerned about the minute I saw it. And I talked to people, and they're like, no, they've been using this stuff in Europe for ages, and it's so great, and there's hardly any problems. And you know what? In the cold weather, this hardly splits where copper pipe splits, so you don't get the splitting, and all these justifications from the plumbers and the manufacturers and the builders why they were using this. And I started thinking, wait, there's millions of dollars into this thing, and people will justify anything when they're making tons of money off of it. And I just thought, wait a minute, the plumbers aren't saying anything about the health issue. They're just saying it's easy, it's great, it's the best thing since sliced bread. Oh, we don't have to, solder it. And then when I talk to a couple of plumbers, they go, "Oh yeah, we don't really need master plumbers to put this stuff in and put the water into a house, and all we can just hire some people, train them for about 6 to 8 weeks, and they can plumb a house in about 3 days." And I said, "Really?" I said, "Well, if it was copper pipe, how long did it take to plumb a home?" And they went, "Probably about a week and a half." So we're cutting down way, way more. And I said, "Well, this probably doesn't cost that much." And they said, "Oh no, it's like 75% cheaper than copper pipe." So I started thinking, wait a minute, somebody's making a ton of money off of this stuff. The plumbers are, because they're probably charging the same thing to plumb a house, and it's way easier, and they don't need to pay master plumbers to do it. So they can just hire some, young kids off the street, teach them for a while, and have a supervisor, and they've got the thing plumbed, in half the time. The builders are making a ton of money because they're not dropping the price of their home, but they're not paying for copper pipe, so they're making a ton of profit. The manufacturer's justifying that it's just great and it's healthy and there shouldn't be no health problems because they're making millions and millions of dollars. And I said, this is a product that's made out of petroleum. It's a petroleum product made out of oil, and the chemicals out of that product is seeping in the water. If it didn't, then when I turned on the water, why did it taste and smell like plastic or gasoline? But eventually, according to my clients, it kind of cleared up. So I never gave it really any thought. But every time I see it, and you don't see hardly any copper in a home anymore, that I just look at it and I go, it's just cheap, junk. It's just easy for the plumbers. It saves the builders tons of money, and all the people making money, off of it, justify, how great of a product it is. But I just had my doubts. So recently, I saw an article. This has nothing to do with the PEX pipe, but it has to kind of, in a way, doesn't. And PEX pipe is polyethylene pipe. It had to do with plastic, just plastic in general, plastic water bottles. And it just came out probably I'd say the past month, and it's now January 15th, 2024, so it kind of maybe came out the past month or two. And it came out with Columbia University and Rutgers University. And they did research on water in water bottles. And the research said that there was, just in a one water bottle, they found 240,000 detectable plastic fragments in a typical liter of water bottle. It was called microplastics. You couldn't see it by the naked eye, but it was like molecules that were plastic, 240,000 of them in a bottle, a typical water bottle. And it was really interesting because and this was published in the National Academy of Science publication, and they said they were kind of concerned about this, but it wasn't toxic levels. So the water was okay to drink. You're not going to die, but it was kind of toxic. And I went, wait a minute, wait. If water isn't pure and they got all these microplastic molecules floating around and they say it's okay to drink, what the heck are they talking about? So I started thinking, okay, wait a minute. If there's all these microplastics floating around in a water bottle, I wonder what these PEX pipe, I mean, it's been like 30 years now. I wonder if they've done any research on PEX pipe. And they have, but it's not conclusive. I mean, it's not, they've got enough information, but they're not going to commit to it. They're like, well, we need more information. We're not really sure here. It is what you kind of thought it was, but we need more research. So here's kind of an article that I found, and I'm shaking my head and go, wow, 30 years ago, my instincts were right. It's just that they're not really commit yet. And the reason for it is because there's millions and millions and millions, billions of dollars in this industry. Plumbers, manufacturers, builders, they're all making money. And it's really funny because one of my friends said, hey, JD, we saw a Netflix documentary about fentanyl and how the company said it was such a great drug when it came out. And it was a drug for everything. It eliminated pain and it was great for anxiety. It was this and that. And that. They were making billions of dollars until they found out it was so highly addictive. And yeah, they knew about this, but they didn't really admit it. And it's on Netflix. It was a great thing. So it shows you how corporates are so greedy that when they even find that something is wrong, they won't admit to it. But this was an article that came out. You can kind of look it up. And I'm just kind of making it simple. It says, PEX pipes are a popular choice for home plumbing system due to their affordability. And what they're saying is, hey, you know what? PEX pipe is so great because it's cheap. Okay, that's how they justify it. PEX pipe is so wonderful because it's cheap. They're not saying, hey, PEX pipe is so great because it's healthy, it's great. They're saying it because it's cheap. Now, I did research on copper pipe, and I thought, why was copper pipe used for years? I mean, years, probably 150 years they used copper pipes, and they even used copper, years and years and years ago. And I found out that a lot of water pitchers back years ago, I mean, even thousands of years ago, were made out of copper. And the reason for this is copper is antimicrobial. And what that means is that copper kills fungus and bacteria. Not all, but a lot of bacteria and fungus. So that's why they used copper for the water in homes, because it was antimicrobial. It killed bacteria and fungus. And so I thought, well, that's great. But this PEX pipe is not antimicrobial. It does not kill fungus, does not kill bacteria. So they always say, oh, well, if you have this and you haven't been in your house for a while, make sure you turn on your water and flush the system out before that. Well, I'm like, okay, why are you doing that? If this is so great, why are you doing that? So, like I said, this article continues, and it says it's just cheap, and that's why we love it. And it says the ease of use. It's so easy to install, like the plumber 30 years ago. It's so easy to install, no problem. It says, however, okay, there is limited research. Now, here's the interesting. It's like, okay, there's limited research. What? You're going to need another 100 years before you do this? Now, it's really funny because asbestos causes cancer. Okay, so I'm not saying PEX pipe causes cancer because, like I said, but I remember, years ago they put asbestos in homes. They didn't know it caused cancer. They just thought, hey, it was a great fire retardant. And that was great, and then they found out it caused cancer. So you just never know about PEX pipe. But it says there's limited research on that's long term that's impacting PEX pipe and the water quality. But here's what they say in another thing. They say, well, some preliminary findings suggest PEX pipe may leach contaminants into your water tap water. So what they're saying here is they're saying, well, PEX pipe may leach contaminants into your water, but you can consider it safe. But then it goes on, it says, according to a recent study conducted in 2021, researchers test water from 8 different types of PEX pipe. And remember, PEX pipe, they say PEX pipe, they don't want you to know that it's polyethanol pipe, or polyethylene, God, I don't know how they pronounce that. Polyethanol or polyethylene, there you go, pipe. So they just say PEX pipe because polyethylene is kind of tough to say, to be honest with you, till you practice for a while. So they say PEX pipe. And they looked at this and they said 8 different types of PEX pipe brands, and they found that 62 chemicals, okay, 62 chemicals, not one chemical, not 2 chemicals, 62 different chemicals leached into the water. With half of these organic chemicals leached into the water were toxic, but they were not cancerous. Okay, so I'm like, wait. What do you mean they're toxic and not cancerous? Okay, so what they're saying is, well, it's no problem. All these chemicals, they're in your water that's leached in, but don't worry, you're probably not going to get cancer, but they are toxic. And I thought, wait, what are they saying here? And they said, however, these findings are still not definitive, which means they found 62 chemicals that are toxic, but they don't know if it's going to kill you or not. Just keep drinking. Just keep drinking it. And then eventually, when everybody starts getting liver damage and kidney failure, and then maybe we'll find out that it's toxic enough to take out of the houses. But for right now, hey, nothing to see here, folks. Just live your life and keep drinking it. No problem. But it's really funny because, like it says, however, these findings are still not decisive, and studies did not account for factors like the type of fittings used to secure the piping, or any byproducts that are seeping into the pipes. So, and they conclude this. They say, in conclusion, well, PEX pipe may not be entirely safe, but still it's kind of safe for drinking. What do you mean that? What are they talking about here? So I started looking up what is toxic and what is cancerous, because they say it's toxic, but it's not going to give you cancer. So I thought, well, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I mean, this is kind of extreme. So I get a gun and I shoot you and you get shot, and I say, you know what? The bullet could be toxic, which means it could kill you, but the bullet I just shot you with, it's not going to give you cancer. That's kind of what they're saying. So I started looking at this and I started saying, well, what did they mean by toxic? And I kind of started looking into what toxic means. And what it is, it's kind of weird how they determine this. And like I said, I'm not a biologist and I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but I started looking at this and I thought of saying, what do they mean by toxic? And I look and say, this is just kind of my example. You drink a glass of gasoline, you're going to die, right? Bang, going to die. Okay, that's pretty bad. But if I get half a gallon of water and I put maybe a half a teaspoon of gasoline in it, you can drink it. Maybe it might get you a little upset, but you're not going to die from it. So what they're saying is all of these chemicals are in the water. We're not going to assure that you're going to die immediately, and we don't have really a lot of research on this, so we can't really tell you if you keep drinking this you're going to die in the future. But I mean, common sense is if you drink a little gasoline at a time and a little bit of these chemicals in the water supply from polyethanol, and it's a byproduct of a petroleum product, and all these chemicals in it, pretty soon it's just a little bit in your body, little bit in your body, little bit in your body, little bit in your body. It's like smoking cigarettes. Little bit in your body, little bit in the body, little bit. Eventually, after smoking for 30 or 50 years, you die of lung cancer. If this stuff keeps going and keeps going and keeps going, eventually people start getting sick, liver damage, kidney failure, things like that. But if it takes 20 to 30 years, a lot of times they might be associating with age. Hey, he just got old. We don't know really what gave him kidney damage. So it's not, it's not one of those things. Or they might be kidney damage, liver failure, other things that could go wrong, and they never associate it with the PEX pipe and the chemicals that have leached into the PEX pipe over all these years. Because maybe what it is interesting is the average person who purchases a home in the home for 7 to 10 years. So maybe 17 years, 10 years they moved to someplace else, or they moved to someplace else. So you can't really track it. So over the long run, maybe they might find this, but for right now, like they said in the article, there's really no, they have to look at this a lot longer before they determine if PEX pipe is not safe for drinking water. But they're saying for right now, yeah, you could drink a little bit of gasoline with the water and it's not going to kill you. Eventually it might be toxic. Yeah, but you won't get cancer for it. But eventually, over all the years you've drinking a little bit of gasoline in your water supply, eventually you might have liver failure. Your kidneys might go, and you might die. But right now, we don't really. We're gonna have to do more research because we can't really associate it with all the chemicals in the water supply that you're drinking. So it's it's just crazy, and I know that eventually over the years I'm going to find out that in some way, somehow, that this thing wasn't really all that safe to use as a water pipes in homes. All they did is look at it and realize that it was used just to save tons and tons of money and labor costs and so on and so forth. Also, to sum it up, I talked to some of the plumbers. And some of the plumbers say, oh, yeah, we love it. It's great. Blah, blah, blah. Same story I've heard for 30 years. But a lot of them, like in hot places like Nevada, Arizona, places that have a lot of mice and a lot of rats, and it's really warm, they said one article that I read after I talked to his plumber. It was these people were changing all the PEX pipe to copper because the mice were so thirsty because it was so warm outside that they were going into the house and gnawing into the PEX pipe to get to the water source, and they were like, the PEX pipe was starting to leak and flood. And one of the articles said that they took, the whole house had flooded, and they took the the walls apart, and it was just, it looked like all the PEX pipe was all chewed up, because all the mice and the rats were all trying to get to the water source. And so they had to change all the PEX pipe into copper pipe. And the plumbers that I had talked to, they said, oh yeah, we in the industry kind of in the certain areas of United States, we call it rat candy because the rats just like it. So that's kind of another drawback on it. So like I said, if you have PEX pipe, boy, I don't have PEX pipe. When I went out and pretty much bought my previous home, I looked all over, and yeah, I found a lot of really nice homes, but they all had the PEX plastic pipe through it, and I just said, nah, I just don't trust it. I mean, and that's just me. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not saying that, saying that it's a fatal, but they do say that it's toxic. And, I looked up toxic, and it says that, toxic is different than being cancerous. It's just, it's eventually it's, might affect you in different ways. It's, I guess, like one of the people I talked to, and they said, JD, you're right. We never thought about it because people don't buy homes because of, if it's copper pipe or PEX pipe. They just buy a home. They look at all the cosmetics. It's got water, and it's great. But like I said, when this article came out, it says 62 chemicals were found in the water. But they said it's still drinkable. I'm like, great. But if you have PEX pipe, I would just go to Walmart or, Home Depot, Lowe's, one of the big box stores, and just get a water filter. Or just, the drinking water, go and get a pitcher with a filter in it and just put the water that you drink in a filter, because like I said, I just don't trust it. And if you think that, if you do have PEX pipe and you're thinking, oh, JD's just, I don't know, he's concerned about nothing, just like I said, leave your home for about a week on vacation and come back and then turn your water on and see how it tastes. And I can guarantee it'll probably taste like you're drinking out of a hose. But in my opinion, that's the chemicals that leached in from the pipe into the water, and that's why they say, oh, just, run it for a while and then the taste will disappear. Like I said, it's kind of like saying you can drink a cup of gasoline and it'll kill you. But, just if you mix that gasoline with a lot of water, it'll be okay to drink. That's kind of their attitude for it. So, in conclusion, folks, don't want to panic you. I don't want you to start ripping out all the PEX pipe out of your home. But keep an eye on it, There's, like I said, more research to be done, but I figure eventually they're going to come up with, hey, this PEX pipe over a long period of time, if you drink it, it could affect your kidneys, and it could affect your liver, and it could affect a lot of other organs. Like they said, it's toxic, but it's not going to give you cancer, so it could be affecting you a lot, but you probably won't get cancer for it, but you might get all these other diseases. So that's kind of what they're saying. So, folks, like I said, just wanted to bring this out. Not wanting to panic anybody. Like I said, just something that you need to research on your own. But in my opinion, this is just my opinion, I wouldn't have a house with PEX pipe. I did not buy a house with PEX pipe. It's got copper pipe because copper pipe, like I said, is antimicrobial and it kills fungus and bacteria. And look it up. But this PEX pipe doesn't. So hopefully you guys got some good insight on PEX pipe. Do your own research. Really appreciate it. And thank you very much for listening. Like I said, I don't want you to start panicking because you have PEX pipe in your house. But just do your own research and you can come up with your own conclusion. Hey, thank you very much. Thank you all for listening and have a very, very good day. Bye for now.
We hope you enjoyed the show, Real Estate for the Common Man. Please follow us or subscribe. Tell your friends, neighbors, relatives, and coworkers about us. We're on all your major podcast apps: Amazon, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and iTunes. If you can't remember all that, just Google it, or have your friends Google Real Estate for the Common Man, and it will come up. Again, we thank you very much for your time and hopefully you enjoyed the show. Hey, if you live in Colorado Springs and want to buy or sell a home, you can look us up at soldrealestatecompany.com as in I sold a home. Again, thank you very much. Have a very good week and we'll see you next Monday. Bye for now.